Trump's DOJ is withholding 50 plus pages of notes and interviews directly naming Trump as an alleged abuser. And NPR was the first major outlet to confirm that, what I think we also all kind of knew. Because as the Epstein scandals unfolded with the release of files, the redaction issues, the fallout, the open secret here has been that even with all the information in the 3 million released pages, the Trump administration still wasn't telling us everything. And NPR's investigation found dozens of documents apparently cataloged in the DOJ database, but not released publicly. And in their analysis of 3 different sets of serial numbers on the files, NPR found 53 pages of interview documents and notes missing from the public Epstein database. And of course, in addition to that being ethically very concerning, that is despite the Trump administration being required by law to release all the files. And, I'd give you 3 guesses into what NPR found in these unreleased documents, but you already know. You're guessing it, you're using the context clues. A woman naming Trump as her sexual abuser when she was just a child. Right? And specifically, the woman says that back in 1983, when she was just 13 years old, Epstein introduced her to Trump, who tried forcing her into sex before she fought back and bit him, and saying in response, Trump punched her in the head and kicked her out. And that woman was apparently interviewed by the FBI 4 times, but NPR reports that only the first interview makes an appearance in the public database. And that one interview that was public, shocker, it was the one that doesn't mention Trump at all, and it only discusses her time with Epstein, and specifically when she identified him and discussed the way that he abused her as a child. Also, there's another woman's allegations against Trump that NPR noted was removed from the public files after the initial release and then republished a few weeks later. And in that case, you had a woman saying that she was 13 years old when Epstein began abusing her, and at one point, she was taken to Trump's Mar-a-Lago club to meet him. They're saying that she was incredibly uncomfortable as both men laughed about her being a good one. Now, as you might imagine, Team Trump wasn't exactly receptive to NPR's questions about these omissions. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said that Trump has, quote, done more for Epstein's victims than anyone before him, and adding, just as President Trump has said, he's been totally exonerated on anything relating to Epstein. But you had Democrats very quickly honing in on the fact that Trump's DOJ isn't releasing everything the way that they're supposed to. And in fact, Representative Robert Garcia, the ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, he released a statement confirming NPR's reporting. Right? And as a member of Congress, he's got access to the unredacted files, and so you had him saying in a statement, Oversight Democrats can confirm that the DOJ appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with this survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes. Oversight Democrats will open a parallel investigation into this. Covering up direct evidence of a potential assault by the President of the United States is the most serious possible crime in this White House cover-up. And while this is obviously a massive escalation in the Epstein fallout with the president, and we have to keep our eyes on this, we should also talk about the other prominent figures, at least here, that are facing some heat. Right? And so there you're seeing things like celebrity doctor Peter Attia stepping down from his position with CBS amid the scrutiny about his email exchanges with Epstein, with the spokesperson saying he stepped back to ensure his involvement didn't become a distraction from the important work being done at CBS, and saying he wishes the network and its leadership well and has no further comment at this time. Then over in the UK, you have the former UK ambassador to the US being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office because of his connection with Epstein. Right, and then back over in the States, you have Casey Wasserman, who's been facing calls to resign from his position as chair of the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics over his emails with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But still, with all that, there is this question of, will there be any real accountability, whether it be someone like Casey Wasserman all the way up to Trump? Right, but also, as you have all this playing out, we then have to talk about another scandal involving Representative Tony Gonzales. Right, because a growing number of politicians are calling for the Republican representative to resign over allegations he had an affair with a former staff member who died by suicide last year. Right, and as far as specifics, that staff member is Regina Santos Aviles. According to texts seen by several publications, Gonzales sent sexually explicit messages to her, asking for sexy images and what her favorite position is. Those messages also appeared to continue, even though she told him he was going too far. Also, at some point, she even questioned if Gonzales had hired her just because he thought that she was hot. Other messages show that they agreed to meet up on multiple occasions and spent time together at a vacation cabin. Right, and Regina also allegedly texted a colleague to say she, quote, had an affair with our boss. Now, as far as the messages, some of those have been shared by her husband, Adrian, who's spoken out about this both online and through his lawyer. With his lawyer also accusing Gonzales of pressuring Regina into a relationship and coercing her to make requests of a sexual nature. And while you have Gonzales denying that he ever had an affair or did anything wrong here, this is notably going down as he's in the middle of a very heated primary. Voters at the polls on March 3rd, and he's fighting to keep his seat to represent Texas's 23rd district. And his opponent's actually a political gun YouTuber by the name of Brendan Herrera, and in the last primary, Gonzales only beat him by 400 votes. So, there was already potential that this was going to be another very close race, and now you've got Herrera running ads about this reported affair, with the narrator saying,
an affair that puts Republicans at risk of losing the seat and handing control of Congress to the Democrats. That's a risk we can't afford.
Now with that, you have Gonzales slamming Herrera, saying it's shameful that Brendan Herrera is using a disgruntled former staffer to smear her memory and score political points, and adding, I am not going to engage in these personal smears and instead will remain focused on helping President Trump secure the border and improve the lives of all Texans. Also, you've got Gonzales accusing Regina's widower and his lawyer of blackmail, saying it's disgusting to see people profit politically and financially off a tragic death. He then also shared a screenshot of an alleged email discussing a $300,000 settlement for an NDA. But then with that, you had the the husband shooting back, "We have never blackmailed anyone. What we've seen instead is a consistent pattern of evasion, refusal to take accountability, and outright lies to protect your image. Today, though, you still answer to the people you represent, people who deserve the truth, not more deception." And now one of the big things that you're seeing are several Congress members asking Gonzales to answer to his people by stepping out of the election. Lauren Boebert saying that he should resign, Brandon Gill saying America deserves better, Nancy Mace releasing a lengthy statement saying these text messages are disgusting and inexcusable. A member of Congress harassing his own staffer in the middle of the night. She is gone now. Her son is growing up without his mother, and Tony Gonzales is campaigning like nothing happened. We have zero tolerance for those who abuse their power over others. Zero. It does not matter what party you are in, Texans deserve a congressman who does not prey on women. Now that said, for his part, Speaker Mike Johnson has not called for resignation, but he addressed the issue saying, "These are serious accusations and it must be taken seriously, and I've told him he's got to address that with his constituents, and he's in the process of doing that." With him also adding that investigations in both Texas and the Office of Congressional Conduct need to play out. But that is, of course, many want immediate action and justice, considering the woman at the center of all this is gone. Though there, it does appear worth noting that while some have tied her suicide to the affair, we do not officially know that for sure. Her husband's lawyer did say that the affair and the consequences of it factored into her death, but also, according to NBC News, Regina and her husband were actually estranged at the time of her death. And you also had other local outlets reporting that she told first responders that her husband was romantically involved with her best friend. But none of that impacts the severity of the core allegations. And actually with that, the House has previously passed a measure forbidding representatives from engaging in sexual relationships with their staff. But also with all this, one of the things you're seeing is the New York Times saying that this incident kind of puts to test the question of, in Epstein-era politics, can a sex scandal actually derail a major political campaign, especially when it deals with the Republican Party? That said, there's clearly pressure for resignation in this case, but one, will Gonzales actually resign? And two, do voters actually respond by giving him the boot? And well, I guess, one thing's for sure. We will know soon. And then there's more we're gonna dive into in just a minute, but let me thank a sponsor real quick and say, I don't want toast. I want toast that makes me feel like I should be wearing linen and owning a cutting board that costs $200. And that's why I'm obsessed with Wildgrain, who also is a delicious sponsor of today's show. Right? Wildgrain delivers frozen, bake-from-home breads, pastas, and pastries that taste like they came from a place with a line out the door. Everything's made with slow fermented artisanal dough. You pull it out of the freezer, you pop it in the oven, and suddenly your house smells bakery-like. We're talking crusty sourdough, fluffy dinner rolls, fresh pasta, croissants, the kind of stuff that people compliment and you just say, "Oh yeah, obviously." And Wildgrain's boxes are customizable. Along with their variety box, they also offer gluten-free, vegan, and a new protein box. And a bonus, every box includes at least one new seasonal item, so you're always discovering something new. And they're not cutting corners, no preservatives, no weird fillers, just real ingredients and real flavor. It's perfect for weeknights, hosting, or anytime you want carbs that feel international instead of regret-based. Plus, every box donates 2 meals to a food security nonprofit, which means carbs with a conscience. So here's the move. Scan that QR code or go to wildgrain.com/DeFranco for $30 off your first box and free croissants for life. Yes, croissants forever. Wildgrain.com/DeFranco. Let future you enjoy better bread. Then, diving right back into the news.
ICE is teaching cadets to violate the Constitution. And they were attempting to cloak it in secrecy by demanding that I lie about it.
That is just one part of what ex-ICE agent Ryan Schwenk had to say about ICE in front of a Senate hearing yesterday. Right after years of working for ICE, Schwenk said that he resigned because he just couldn't take what the agency had become anymore.
I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when I joined ICE on August 1st, 2021, as an assistant chief counsel. I followed that oath for 4.5 years, working side by side with ICE officers. And I followed it when I resigned on February 13th, 2026, a little over a week ago, so that I could speak to you today. I am here because I am duty-bound to report the legally required training program at the ICE Academy is deficient, defective, and broken.
According to Schwenk, his experiences included blatant and secret instructions from superiors to train lower-ranking agents to defy the law and the Constitution.
5 months ago, I was asked to teach the law to new cadets at the ICE Academy in Glencoe, Georgia, where ICE is training its new, inexperienced recruits. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant.
We've seen and continue to see these kinds of constitutional violations play out as the Trump administration has continued to expand ICE presence across the country. And actually, you had Schwenk speaking next to Tiana Gibson Brown, whose husband, Garrison Gibson, was arrested after armed ICE agents beat down their door with a battering ram last month. With Garrison's wife speaking about the experience that led up to that point at the hearing, mentioning that the agents ignored Gibson's request to see a warrant.
He asked them if they had a warrant. The officers at the door told Garrison that they did have a warrant, and it was signed by a judge. When Garrison asked to see the warrant, The officer simply ignored his request. We knew no one could just barge into our homes without a warrant.
And 4 days after Gibson's arrest, a judge ordered his release, ruling that, surprise, surprise, agents violated Gibson's Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizure. And this is just one of the many accounts across the country where immigrants are fearing that even staying behind closed doors can't keep them safe from ICE. And Schwenk even testified that refusing to perpetrate these types of violations would have cost him his job.
On my first day at the academy, I was instructed to read and return a memo in my supervisor's presence, which claimed ICE officers could enter homes without a judicial warrant. Never in my career had I ever received such a blatantly unlawful order, nor one conveyed in such a troubling manner. Incredibly, I was being shown this memo in secret by my supervisor, who made sure that I understood that disobedience could cost me my job.
Now, Gibson and Schwenk, they're mostly addressing Fourth Amendment violations here, but ICE, they reportedly slashed through a litany of constitutional rights, which has left the public wondering if ICE agents are even bound to the Constitution or even laws at all. With free speech and the right to protest, it seems like more suggestions than rights to the ICE agents, as we've seen them dealing with demonstrators across the country. Also, a free press, I mean, that's definitely under scrutiny, as you have journalists already being arrested for ICE-related reporting. And that doesn't even get into ICE's more general legal violations like racial profiling, observer harassment, and excessive use of force. And according to Schwenk, these issues are due to DHS gutting ICE's training, including classes that seem almost fundamental to being a law enforcement officer of any level.
For the last 5 months, I watched ICE dismantle the training program, cutting 240 hours of vital classes from a 584-hour program. Classes that teach the Constitution, our legal system, firearms training, the use of force, lawful arrests, proper detention, and the limits of officers' authority.
And so this could be part of the answer as to why we continue to see footage of ICE agents openly breaking protocol and often exacerbating existing challenges in their role. But also, why would ICE, who's allegedly meant to save us from dangerous immigrants, and I will say allegedly is doing a lot of work here, want to risk the liability of having untrained agents? Well, Schwenk, he addressed that as well.
Yet, in the name of churning out an endless stream of officers, DHS leadership has dismantled the academic and practical tests that we need to know if cadets can safely and lawfully perform their job. All to satisfy an administration demanding they train thousands of new officers before the end of the year.
We've seen this influx of officers because the administration cannot stop talking about it. At the beginning of this year, you had Homeland Security reporting a historic 120% manpower increase. They claim to have doubled the number of officers from 10,000 to 22,000 after receiving more than 220,000 applications within the last year. But also, as that number has increased, we've seen more evidence of the lack of training that Schwenk testified to. But in the face of everything we're all seeing, DHS has made a statement denying many of the claims that Schwenk made in his testimony. Where they claim that ICE officers, quote, get the best of the best training to arrest and remove murderers, rapists, pedophiles, terrorists, and gang members from our communities, and saying despite false claims from the media and sanctuary politicians, no training hours have been cut. But then also later in that same statement, they say DHS has streamlined training to cut redundancy and incorporate technology advancements without sacrificing basic subject matter content. Which, you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say something crazy. Phil, you're wild for this one, they'll say. I think a decent chunk of the common sense American public would generally not want anything cut down or streamlined in training from an agency that can already break down your doors when they see fit. And well, Schwenk, he seems to have the same concerns.
Law enforcement is a deadly serious business. It is not a place for shortcuts.
And overall, it seems like the push for more ICE officers has left the agency struggling to keep up with training, yes, but also accountability. I mean, as more whistleblowers like Schwenk come out, it does make me wonder, what is this all gonna look like when the dust settles? I mean, Republicans like Steve Bannon have already sounded off about their concerns.
If we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included.
Also, following Alex Preddy's murder, we saw a seemingly tense moment between Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino. The two seemed to start pointing fingers as soon as the blowback from the shooting started, and both seemed to rest on the fact that they had simply been following orders from the president in their respective positions, though of course Bovino has now been relieved. Though also, I have to note famously, there was another group of law enforcement officers who were, quote, just following orders, and that didn't pan out so well for them. And so, you know, with ex-ICE whistleblowers pointing fingers at weak training standards, volatile agents with seemingly few legal limits, and Republican leadership that won't make the appropriate changes, it seems like there's definitely legal questions to consider here. And while the president himself may have skirted the law so far, we've also seen real-time examples over the last few years that he's gonna look out for number one. So that luck, it may not go for everyone else. For Trump, he looks out for Trump, but hey, time will tell. Right, and then there's even more we've got to dive into, but first, let me have a minute and thank a sponsor to say, it is wild how one random thought turns into, hold on, would my family actually be okay if something happened to me? Right, that's when someday planning turns into, I should handle this now. And is why today's sponsor, Fabric by Gerber Life, actually matters. Becoming a parent rewires your brain. Stakes feel real. And I put off life insurance because I assumed that it would be expensive, annoying, and just full of paperwork. And it turns out that doesn't have to be true. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance that you can get done today. It's made for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. For your work policy, it's usually not enough, and it may not follow you if you change jobs. And Fabric offers flexible policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. And they partner with Gerber Life, trusted by families for over 50 years, so it's legit. And it's also risk-free, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel anytime. So if you have kids, especially if you're young and healthy, now's the best time to lock in lower life insurance rates for long-term protection. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family and apply today in just minutes. Scan that QR code or go to meetfabric.com/DeFranco. That's MEET fabric.com/DeFranco. But then, diving right back into the news, we need to talk about Candace Owens versus Erika Kirk. Because Candace just released a trailer for a new series that she's releasing that could just further blow up the MAGA base. It's called The Bride of Charlie, and at least based on what she shared, it is incredibly critical of Erika's response to Charlie's death. It even appears to suggest that she may have had some level of involvement in his murder. The trailer includes clips of Erika alongside commentary questioning her.
Erika Kirk has been named the new CEO.
Was murdered in.
And looking around, this pissed off a ton of people, especially conservatives. People saying things like, there is something deeply broken in someone who would attack a grieving widow for profit. We are called to defend widows. Scripture is clear on that, and Charlie would have stood for it. Meghan McCain calling Candace pure, unadulterated fucking evil, saying who in God's name would put a woman whose husband was brutally assassinated in front of this entire world through this? Ben Shapiro even putting out a video going after the series saying,
this is the stuff that Candace Owens has been doing. Because Candace Owens is a true vampire when it comes to conservatism and the conservative movement. She finds prominent people and then she grifts off of them, and then she does more grifting off of them, and then she grifts them until she's done grifting them. Then she moves on to the next thing she can grift off of. And yes, Erika Kirk absolutely should sue the living hell out of Candace Owens for this sort of stuff. She is making money off the murder of Charlie Kirk by literally implicating his widow and everyone else at TPUSA in that murder.
Now for some context here, in case you're stumbling across this video, Candace is an incredibly popular conservative podcaster, and she's been discussing Charlie's murder and talking about conspiracies with it for months. Right? In those theories, they've caused major rifts, and they're one of the many divisions at the center of the so-called MAGA civil wars. And so understand, even though there is backlash, people who have been following Candace along, who land on her side of these right-wing media battles, they are pumped for this series. I mean, just take one look through her comments section. Top comments quoting Charlie Kirk saying, you better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free. People saying this episode's gonna be heard around the world like a battle cry. But again, that's as you have people pushing back against Candace and the excitement around this series. And among those pushing back, you had conservative podcaster Alex Clark, who has ties to TPUSA, writing, I've never been more certain of anything in my life than this. Anyone refusing to call out Candace while claiming to be close with Charlie is one of the biggest frauds in the movement and probably has the most dirt to hide. They let Erika suffer to protect themselves. God will deal with all of them. But as far as what happens next, the series debuts tomorrow. So very soon, we'll see what kind of traction it gets and how much backlash it gets from the Turning Point faction of the right. But then, finally today, we need to talk about Trump and AI. Nearly 6 in 10 Americans do not trust AI. 8 in 10, they're concerned that it could pose a threat to humanity, and 80% say that the government should have rules for AI safety, even if it slows development. And that includes 79% of Republicans. But Trump has gone balls to the walls all in on AI, speeding up development and reversing Biden's regulation. Though also, maybe that's not surprising given the president's dealings and tech companies spending a record $109 million lobbying last year. Meta alone launched a $65 million election push to boost AI-friendly candidates. Now with all that, as far as some of the specific concerns, there's definitely a lot of concern around jobs, where you've got polling showing that 2/3 of Americans think AI is gonna steal jobs. When you look at the economy, more Americans think that AI's impact is gonna be negative there. And then beyond that, there are increasing concerns about energy, land use, and environmental impact of the resource-intensive data centers that are necessary to power AI. And that opposition's actually turned into real, tangible things. But according to Data Center Watch, $162 billion in data center projects have been blocked or delayed since 2023. And then, of course, there's a lot of worrying around the kids. Right, one firm, they looked at data from women 50 and older, which is a very high turnout voter group that's gonna probably mean a lot in the midterms. And they found that 90% of them are concerned about the lack of national AI standards to protect kids. But then, as far as the kids themselves, that's a whole different situation. Numerous polls there have showed that there are major generational gaps for AI support and trust. Right, younger Americans, they're much more likely to use and support these products or have more optimistic outlooks as to how they're gonna impact the future. In fact, a Pew study that was released just today, it showed that more than half of all US teens use AI chatbots, including nearly 1/3 who use them daily. Just as a side note, that is a topic I want to do a deep dive on. we'll do that somewhat soon. You know, one wonders with all this, will we see some legislation for regulation? Because it turns out while there is an age gap, this is actually a surprisingly bipartisan issue. When it comes to the belief that the government should have rules for AI safety and data security, 88% of Democrats favor those policies, but so do 79% of Republicans and independents. And at least at the state level, it seems like politicians are listening. Numerous states have proposed or enacted a variety of different laws attempting to regulate various aspects of AI. And in fact, reportedly at the Governors Association's recent annual meeting, you had leaders across the political spectrum saying that their voters are very worried about AI. But again, despite the widespread bipartisan concerns, Trump has gone all in, repeatedly touting the technology and making enormous investments in the products. Despite the polling showing that Americans want to slow down and be safe, Trump's done the exact opposite, taking numerous steps to speed up development while also pushing mass deregulation and reversing the limited checks that the Biden administration put in place. And all the while, you have all this tech money, all this pro-AI money getting thrown into politics. As far as if this is going to be like a top 3 mover regarding which way people vote or if people go out to vote, we'll see in the midterms. For me, and this is more of a feels like me trying to judge society and people, despite how big of an impact all of this is gonna have on our futures and abilities and prospects, I don't think that enough people are gonna move on this situation until it's too late. You know, whether you think I'm being a cynic there or a realist there, or this is actually just an overblown situation, I'd love to hear your thoughts there in those comments down below. But that, my friends, you beautiful bastards, is the end of today's show. But you may not be done with me yet, because not only are you, yes, a click away from watching last night's Philip DeFranco show if you missed it, tonight, starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, I'll be streaming Trump's State of the Union. So, you can grab yourself a drink, a bite, do some stretches to make sure you don't pull something rolling your eyes. We'll get through it and break it down together. I love your faces, and I'll see you then or tomorrow.